Learning modern web development. In addition to adjusting the parameters of the video contests, I also thought making a more professional website would attract more students. At this stage, we were still operating with an incredibly primitive website that looked like it was built in the 90s. I also thought a nicer website would help us attract more impressive sponsors, which would give us better prizes, which would attract more students. Up to this point, I assumed I would attract collaborators to help to build a nicer website. Unfortunately, I didn't have a detailed enough vision for this project yet to attract partners. This experimental, exploratory phase I was in really required autonomy. Consequently, I immersed myself in learning about modern web development technology. A quick Google search for how to build a website led me to an endless supply of free resources to learn to code, like YouTube and Code Academy. These were good to give me a refresher on HTML, which gives the structure of a web page, and to start learning about CSS, which gives the styling to the page. But I was overwhelmed at all the different languages and options when it came to making things functional on the site. The scope was too large, and I realized that I didn't really need to learn everything. I needed to learn the specific skills to build a community-based website that operated similar to Reddit, except focused on video content. I narrowed my Google search to terms like how to build a website like Reddit and found two options for software platforms that seemed like they could work: WordPress and Telescope. I had heard of WordPress before, but never used it. As I understood it, WordPress was easy to use and incredibly popular. Telescope was a brand new platform that I'd never heard of and was based on a new programming language called Meteor. Looking back, for the benefit of moving the open source Hi project forward, I should have gone with WordPress. I would have been up and running faster with less hassle. At the time, the tech geek in me wanted to be sophisticated, so I decided to learn about programming with Meteor and built the site using Telescope. This required me to learn a lot more about modern programming than I really needed for this particular site. The benefit of choosing Meteor and Telescope is that I learned a lot about web development. The downside was that the website wasn't as attractive as it could have been if I'd gone with WordPress. There were lots of bugs, and it was time-consuming to continue supporting it. To get help learning about Meteor, I befriended some web developers online in a Slack chat room. Slack is similar to Discord. That was focused around the Telescope platform. Since Telescope was open-source software, the platform attracted a lot of creative, self-directed people who share ideas openly and collaborate on software development. Some of these developers would help me when I was in a jam, sometimes for free, sometimes I had to pay them. In addition, a GitHub forum existed for the Telescope platform, which was yet another opportunity to ask questions and get support from other users. These open-source communities were amazing examples of the power of peer learning, which reinforced my belief in this project. My primary mentor in the Valley Venture Mentors program, Scott, was a retired web developer who directed me to another massive online community of web developers who support one another called Stack Overflow. In many cases, whatever question I had was usually already asked by someone else, and the answer was already awaiting me. In the rare cases I couldn't find an answer, I would post my question, and I'd commonly have a few responses within a day or two. It is always important to think of your mentors not necessarily as people who have the answers, but as people who can connect you to the people who do have the right answers. When possible, always ask your mentors for introductions to people they know who may be able to help you. I also went to an in-person meetup.com group for Meteor programmers and connected with someone who eventually became who I think of as being my software mentor, Dave. He and I had many discussions and debates, imagining the ways in which software could be utilized to facilitate self-directed and peer learning communities. And he also helped me one-on-one with some particularly frustrating programming bugs I couldn't resolve otherwise. Supportive resources can come in many different places, even from an Airbnb host. Around this time, I stayed in an Airbnb in Boston and mentioned to the host, Amigdio, that I was starting to build websites. He was a graphic designer who was just beginning to learn web design using WordPress so that he could earn a living while attending school to become an accountant. He showed me his projects and pointed me to some free new tools that made building beautiful websites quite easy using WordPress page builders. It was meeting Emigdio that finally got me exposed to how easy WordPress was to work with and opened my eyes to the possibility that I could actually make money building websites for other people.